But happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome back to the Data Science Hangout this week. If it's your first time joining us today, it's so nice to meet you. Thank you all for spending your Thursday with us. If we haven't met, I'm Rachel Dempsey. I lead customer marketing at Posit and the host of the Data Science Hangout. This is our open space to chat about data science leadership, questions you're facing, and getting to hear about what's going on in the world of data across different industries. And so we're here every Thursday at the same time, same place. I'll say, except the week of September 18th, we will be at the Posit conference in Chicago. And I'm excited to meet so many of you there in person. So let us know in the chat if you're going to be there. The conference will also have a virtual experience as well. I'll share this in the chat as well if you want to check it out. But anyways, if you are watching this recording on YouTube later, sometime in the future, the link to add the live events to your calendar will be in the details below on YouTube as well. But at the Data Science Hangout, we are all dedicated to making this a welcoming environment for everyone. We love to hear from everyone, no matter your years of experience, titles, industry, or the languages that you work in. And every week, I'm joined by a different leader from the community who joins us to share their experience and answer questions from you all. It's totally okay if you just want to listen in here, maybe are doing some other work in the background as well. But if you want to ask questions or provide your own perspective, you can jump in by raising your hand on Zoom. You can put questions in the Zoom chat. And always feel free to put a little star next to it if it's something you want me to ask instead of me calling on you to ask it live. And then we also have a Slido link, which I see Curtis just shared in the chat, where you can ask questions anonymously too. But with all that, thank you again for joining us here this Thursday. I am so excited to be joined by my co-host, Gabriela de Quiroz, Principal Cloud Advocate at Microsoft. And I was just talking with Isabella on our team. You've been like a dream co-host of mine, Gabriela. So I'm so excited to have you here. I'd love to have you introduce yourself and maybe share a little bit about your role and also something you like to do outside of work too.
Awesome. I'm so happy to be here. I miss this community so much and the interaction, and I'm sad that I will not be at the conference. So Gabriela de Quiroz, I've been with Microsoft for a little bit less than a year. I just actually moved teams. It's going to be official September 1st. But my work now it's going to be towards startups. So I'll be working on startups, helping them leveraging the power of like Microsoft Cloud and the products that we have. Also like help them navigate this whole AI landscape. Making sure that they have a lot of like questions around should I buy or should I build, so we are going to be advising the mostly AI startups to see where they can leverage AI successfully, sharing our knowledge and so on. But before that, I worked for IBM and other small companies, always doing like data science, some advocacy. Sometimes I was as an advocate as a role. I had like right now, I had advocacy in my title, but I was always an advocate in any role that I was performing. And I also founded two communities. One is Our Ladies, which I'm pretty sure almost everybody here should know or have heard about, which I'm so grateful for the community. The other one is AI Inclusive. And what I like to do when I'm, on my free time, so I love water. So if I can be in the water, in the pool or in the ocean, anything related to water is my happy place. So I'm back to doing some kind of like, going with my kids to the pool and enjoying summertime.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Gabriela. And thank you for the introduction to your role as well. I know you mentioned AI Inclusive a bit and Our Ladies, and many of us might be familiar with Our Ladies. not as familiar with AI Inclusive, but would you be able to just kind of describe what both of those communities are?
Yeah, so Our Ladies, it's been almost 11 years since I founded Our Ladies here in San Francisco. And the goal is to bring more diversity into the art community. It always started here in San Francisco, but we have chapters, what we call, all over the world. I think we have over 200 chapters in more than 60 plus countries, with thousands and thousands of members. And each chapter they organize in the way that works best for them. It could be like they do workshops, or they do book clubs together, or they go through lectures together. But the main thing is about like creating this community. And you can see one thing that I always mention is it's hard to say about numbers, how Our Ladies changed the ecosystem. The best way is to see like the pictures from the conferences, how it was before and how it is right now in terms of like diversity. And then AI Inclusive, it was another organization that I created in 2019, when I was very much involved in this AI discussion about discrimination, bias, and so on. And one of the things that I noticed when we were discussing those things is that it was very US, Silicon Valley centric, all the discussions, and the rest of the world, they were not aware of like the implications of AI. And they were the ones, like in some particular places, they were the ones that were going to suffer the most. So my idea with the community was kind of like twofold. The first one was to bring awareness of the implications of AI. And the second one was to empower the underrepresented community to learn about AI and, to have the tools to, make decisions and to be knowledgeable about things that are happening and also enter the workforce.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing those. I was going to put in the chat, if anybody wants to be the first to share the links to those two organizations in the chat, that would be helpful too. People are really quick on that. But Gabriela, something I really wanted to ask you about, and something we spoke about a bit before, is the power in building relationships within an organization. And you shared with me how you moved from a company where everybody knew you, to having to then prove yourself again in a new role. And I was wondering if you'd be able to just share a little bit about that experience with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I left IBM, which is a huge company, right? So 300,000 employees. But I was there for a little bit over 4 years. And I knew a bunch of people because one of the things that I did with my role was to connect with different teams and working with different teams. So I knew a bunch of people. And then when I moved to Microsoft, like even my team, they didn't know like about my past, the things that I've done in the past. And not a lot of people inside Microsoft knows who I am, right? So it's kind of like you need to create your reputation, your brand again from scratch, where you have to prove yourself. You have to show others, your value, and it's so. I think it's so difficult in that way. I thought it would be easier, but it's so hard because also like you don't know the channels, which channels to reach out. We use different tools, so you have to get used to the tools. You need to find your communities inside the company, and it's not very straightforward how to find those communities. You need to build relationships again. So it takes time, and I had no idea. Maybe also another reason could be because everybody or most of us are remote, so we don't interface with each other. So we don't there is no hall conversation or seeing each other in the office, getting to know their faces. So it's been hard. It's like it's one step after the other. It's trying to even give talks internally, seeing how I can participate in other projects, connecting to people one-on-one, and so on.
I see Luke put in the chat, every career changer is nodding along to this story. So do you have any specific tips for people of what you've experienced in moving into Microsoft?
It's making sure that you set time to go and find people and schedule one-on-ones. And then you ask that person, oh, is there anyone that I should meet? And then it's got to go in this cascades motion. Is like, okay, I should meet this other person. Okay, oh, there's this other thing I should meet. Oh, there is this group. Oh, I should go and talk to this group. Oh, there is this other group. And so on. So that would be my advice. A lot of one-on-ones and doing a lot of search inside the tools that you have, trying to, snowball sampling, snowball effect. That pretty much what I did, what I've been doing. And it's been almost a year, and I feel like I still have a long way to go.
Thank you. That's really helpful. I see Deepsha, you had asked a question. I think it was actually over on Slido, but I saw your name there. So do you want to ask that live?
Hi, Gabriela. Always fun to hear you talk about your work and your path. One thing that I've always admired about you is your ability to constantly learn, but especially as an advocate, how do you keep up with the field that is growing faster than our speed to keep up with it? And any
It is so hard because it's faster than ever. It's so like before the whole AI, the generative AI and all the tools and everything that is being born these days, it was hard to keep up, right? Now I get very overwhelmed with like, oh, should I know this? Should I know that? Oh, now there is this new tool. So I try to focus as much as I can and not being very stressed about all the new things, because there is a lot of noise as well. And making sure that I have a network of people that I can leverage them and their knowledge so I can get my knowledge as well, instead of me trying to figure out myself. So that has been my tip or my suggestion for myself, because I used to get very stressed. I'm like, I'm so behind. I'm in this catch-up mode all the time, and there is no end. And I don't think I will survive if I keep doing this. So let me be a little bit more smart and strategically. So I leverage my peers, my coworkers, even you, Deepsha. We have some calls every now and then to kind of like share like the things that she's doing with R, which I'm not doing as much. And I'm like, I want to know what is happening in the world of R. And so we have some conversations. So leveraging people is the best way that I found to be up to date on what is happening.
I like to remind everybody, because I forget to to say this again. If you join after the initial introductions, there's a few different ways you can ask questions. So I see people have figured out you can write in the chat here on Zoom. But if you also wanted to jump in live, you can raise your hand on Zoom or use the Slido link to ask anonymously, which Curtis will share again in a second. But Smorthy, I see you had asked a question here in the chat. Do you want to jump in?
Sure. Sorry, my camera is not working.
No worries.
So I guess so I am a pure biologist by trade, but I've really started enjoying data science and really see my future in that field. And I always wonder, because now both Microsoft, Amazon, Google are all jumping on the genomics boat, and are like, would entering one of these companies be a potential, a job for me? So in your experience, how do you deal with or manage people who come from really different backgrounds that might not be traditionally computational or traditionally statistics or math? And kind of how do you actually leverage their knowledge in your work environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when I'm hiring, I'm looking for a broad set of skills. Like I try to make it, I say that it's kind of like a puzzle. It's like bringing together a team. It's like building this puzzle where I need people with different backgrounds, different set of skills, different set of ideas, different ways of working and thinking. And I feel like the academic, if you have an academic background, no matter which one, it's also like very helpful, and you bring a lot of like expertise and deep knowledge that maybe other professionals don't have as much, or vice versa. One thing that I think, and you don't have to have like the traditional like statistical background or computer science. It's well proven that that doesn't what do you say, that the best teams are the most diverse ones, right? So, and I do believe that a lot, and I've been building several teams for the past few years, and I saw through my teams, and so there are a lot of like opportunities. And the other thing that I think about is like, if there is an area that you are an expert, that you feel like you are an expert, try to find a job that you can relate. And I'll give an example. So I was in academia for several years before moving to the industry, and it was hard for me to make the bridge between the academic world and the industry world. So once I was talking to people to try to understand, one of the things that I realized is we all have the same kind of like a similar knowledge, but the way that we name things, the terminology, they are so different, but they mean the same thing. Once I was able to have that clicked, I was like, okay, so you are talking about this. Oh yeah, I know what this thing is. Oh, this thing is this, and this that I learned when I was doing my research, right? Oh, the model that you are using in the industry is called this other thing. Oh yeah, I know what it means. So once I was able to make this connection, it became much easier.
What's the biggest thing that happens with, where it mean that we call them two totally different things, but they mean the same things?
Say it again.
Where do you see that happening the most?
Oh, like even statistics and machine learning.
Yeah.
For example, that was the first insight, like, oh yeah. Or if you go to a certain industry like advertisement, they have a lot of like acronyms. They love acronyms, and then you have to understand what the acronyms mean, and then you're like, okay,
Yeah.
I know what it is.
Yeah, definitely. Livy, I see you had a question here in the chat. Do you want to jump in?
Sure. I was wondering, because you mentioned buy versus build questions for the startups that you work with. I was wondering if there are any other problems that you could kind of describe that these startup companies are facing in this landscape, and kind of how your team helps. Like, is it a lot of research where you're researching things and then bringing knowledge back to your clients? Or is it relationship building with experts and then bringing those experts in to talk to the clients? What does that look like?
Yeah, so let me talk about the first one. There is a lot of noise right now in the AI space. A lot of startups being created every day. One of the things that I see happening very often is like they haven't done the kind of like research side of like knowing that, is there any other company that is doing the same thing that I'm trying to build? So there is like the same thing being built over and over and over again, with just a different kind of like look and feel. So there is this market research that they haven't done. So I would call like the homework, making sure that what you are doing, there is a value behind, and that you have a value proposition. So I usually go to some events and they say, oh, give me your pitch. Tell me about your company. And they were like, oh yeah, we have this wrapper around the OpenAI API. and you get a model. And I'm like, okay, but what is the new thing here? Oh, not much. And I'm like, okay, who are your customers? Who are you targeting? Oh, I haven't thought about this. So there is a lot of things that I feel like it's missing on the startup. And the startups that I'm talking to, they are in the very, 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 very early stages. Usually they don't have any funding. They are not backed by any VC or anyone. They are just starting. It could be like a 1-person startup, or it can be like a 5-people startup. It can be an idea as well, and they are thinking of, like incorporating or becoming a startup. So that's the first challenge. The other question that you mentioned about the knowledge. So yes, we do not like research in the way that we do is like knowing what is happening in the space, and also like understand what is the value that we bring as Microsoft, how we compare with other companies as well. And we know that those startups, and as they progress, or even in the beginning, they are not going to be building in one cloud. They are not going to be building on only Microsoft. They are probably going to be building in this we call multi-cloud environment. So they are going to be using Microsoft Cloud, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, and how can we incorporate the other clouds, make sure that they have a good workflow. So we also research what the other companies are doing, but also like what are the advantages that we are offering to our startup ecosystem. And there is a team. It's not only my team, but there is several in different teams working with this. This is the Microsoft for Startup teams.
How do you find these early stage startups to talk to? I guess I'm thinking, as you were telling that story, like if I was a startup, I would probably need to feel like this might just be how I am, like too prepared for that conversation before I'm talking to Microsoft. Like, how do you first get connected with them?
So a few ways. One is we going to events and talking to them, and it could be a one-on-one, or us being on a stage, or as having a booth. But also we have a platform. So we have something called Founders Hub, which is a platform that any startup, anyone with an idea can come and sign up. And there is a lot of benefits that you can get, like you get OpenAI credits, Azure, which is the Microsoft Cloud credits. You get access to one-on-one conversations with experts, you have technical advisors, and so on. So I see kind of like these two ways. Like one is through events and us connecting with them, and the other one is through our platform, which they should be aware in some ways. Maybe it was a campaign that we did. Maybe they knew about the platform because we were in an event. So it's a lot of like awareness. So, but these are the two kind of like ways that we see we interact with startups.
Okay. So people go from, they have an idea and then they get into this program to make it a more official startup as well.
Yeah, it's not even a program, it's a platform. It's a platform. It's kind of like a self-serve platform where you can redeem a lot of credits and benefits.
Thank you. Eugene, I see you had a question in the chat. Do you want to jump in here?
Sure. This might sort of be controversial, mostly in the sense that, like, OpenAI and Microsoft are now partners, very tight. And there's a sense that, at least from my perspective, if AI is kind of very, very good at solving software problems, it feels like it's just a matter of time before a good product manager could ask it to start tinkering, put together a ticketing system, and now ServiceNow is out of business. So Whisper, for example, just released a little bit of extra voice controlled stuff that is a step up in terms of their authentic answering systems too. Now, there's a company called 11 Labs and another one called Well Said that are literally focusing on that exact problem. So wouldn't those companies immediately, I mean, given the computing resources, and AI is going to win with more compute, given the computing resources of Microsoft and OpenAI, as a startup, I am curious and scared in a sense. I'm actually in the bioinformatics field, so I know you guys have a good partnership with Epic, and they're doing incredible stuff. Like I have tons of ideas, and Epic's doing it all. But why ever come up with a new? If AIs can do all these things, like I'm scared as a startup to talk to you, because if I start using your resources, you might figure out how my code works, and then, well, crap, my startup is not going to do too well. I mean, it's a fearful thing. So I'm just curious if you have had this conversation or if other people are worried about this.
Not exactly. Well, and one of the things I can speak about is when you are using anything under Microsoft, even we have Azure OpenAI service, which is kind of like the same APIs that OpenAI has, but we have several layers that differentiate ourselves from, for example, OpenAI. It's like security, SLA, privacy. We also have responsible AI guardrails, and your data don't get stored. Like we don't use your data to train or to do anything. So there is a lot of like things we don't see what you are doing, right? But I see your point. If you are starting from scratch, you think like, am I going to succeed because there are these other big companies doing similar things? But I don't think so. I think like startups, they are in a very specific niche that other big companies are not doing, and they are not sometimes interested in doing. So that's where I see some gaps where the AI startups can come in and serve that particular audience. I'll give an example. One startup called Perplexity AI. You could say, oh, they are similar to what OpenAI is doing, maybe what Bing is doing, but I would recommend for you to check out to see how different they are. It's not the same thing. And also like it's a different audience. Anyway, so I don't see that worry coming from startups. They are very excited. It seems that the whole tooling around AI became a way of like making them powerful to build something. Like even people that had no coding experience, now they can go and build something. I hope that kind of like helps and answer your question, but I can see that it's a very complicated and delicate discussion to have. I'm happy to have more discussion around this.
Thank you. John, I see you had a question in the chat. Do you want to jump in here? And we have a few Johns, so is John Harmon. But I can ask the question, and if you want to jump in and add context, feel free. But the question was, it used to be easier to keep up with the R stats world before, say, October 27, 2022. I'm guessing this is related to Twitter. Have you adjusted to the changed social media landscape? If so, what have you done?
Not much. It's kind of like hard to keep up with the social media. I was a heavy user of Twitter, and then people migrate to one and then migrate to the other one, and then I lost track. I don't know where the community is anymore. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to stay with LinkedIn, but I know that some people is there. But I haven't found my home again. I'm still on Twitter, but I haven't found like a social media that works where I feel like, the community that we used to have on Twitter.
Any ideas? Feel free to share in the chat. I've definitely been heavy on the LinkedIn, but always like was on LinkedIn.
Blue Sky. I haven't used it. I have Mastodon, but it took me a while to understand, and I'm not, I don't know, I don't feel like I'm comfortable with the UI, so I go always back to Twitter, but then the community is not there. Then I go to LinkedIn, so it's a mess. I would say it's a mess. I do miss our community and the way that we used to share knowledge.
A question I had wanted to ask you about is thinking about Our Ladies and AI inclusive. How have you helped those organizations grow? Like, it's amazing to see how many different chapters of Our Ladies there are across the world, for example.
One of the things that helped us for sure was not was coming from being a one person working on the organization to being a team and to have money. So we had funding. So that's where Our Ladies started to grow. But I would say that not only having a team and funding is also making sure that you are taking care of your community. I remember for several years, I would go to meetups and events, and I would handle a little card with not only my name, but the Our Ladies website. And I would say, hey, do you know about this community? It's awesome, and you should check it out. So it was a word of mouth by myself doing this type of thing. But it really changed when we had a team behind and the funding, which came first from the ARC Consortium.
Thank you. Alan, I see you had a question here in the chat. Want to jump in?
Yeah, hi, Gabriella. This is a great conversation. Thank you. I'm curious if Microsoft is doing anything institutionally to sort of promote solutions for things like algorithmic bias in AI, issues with training data, data shaped by biases and so on. And I also wonder if working in the startup space, if there are opportunities for you to sort of be the change that you want to see in the world with respect to, inclusion in AI communities, people doing AI, but also in the data, in the foundational stuff. Are there opportunities for you? Do you see, levers that you can pull in that space there?
Yeah, absolutely. And Microsoft has a whole organization around this particular theme around responsible AI. I don't know the name of the organization, but they have several, not only well-known researchers doing research, but people working with customers to make sure that they have this responsible AI principles embedded into the system. When we talk about startups, we also emphasize the responsibility that they have and the way that they can mitigate bias, that they can be more knowledgeable about this topic. And in the product itself, we have it embedded. So startups, some of them, oh, I don't want to know about this, but it's our role as being part of Microsoft, educate them about this as well. Even if they don't want to hear or listen about this, but it's in our responsibility to be that person that's oh yeah, you have to listen to this. It's important. And sometimes they don't know, they were not educated, or they didn't know about those problems because they never had any issues. But it's part of our, let's say, speech when we talk.
Great, thanks. I appreciate hearing that that's sort of embedded in the approach. I think that's really important going forward. Thank you.
It is, and the whole company, we had to go through several trainings as well, and there is a lot of resources for us on how to learn, where to learn, how to talk about it, what are some resources that could be helpful for you, and so on.
I like the tip you shared about the business cards with the community. And I was just thinking about a lot of us who might be going to conferences again where we haven't been to them in a few years. Do you have other advice or tips for people to get the most out of conferences?
And that was, I just wrote in the chat, that was before stickers,
yeah.
Right? Because I think stickers would be easier to handle, to hand and to give people. But back then we didn't have like this sticker kind of like fever. Conferences. Well, in my opinion, the best thing at conferences is the town, like the hall conversation. More than talks is the conversation and reconnecting with people. So usually when I go to conferences, I pick some talks that I'm like, oh, I can't miss those. This other one, okay, I can, maybe I can, but like the whole conversation, the connections that I make every time I go to conferences, it's priceless. And that's where I go to conferences. It's not about the talks, it's about the people.
Let me just check here to see if I missed questions in the chat here. I know there's a lot of conversation happening about the different social networks and stuff here. Let's see. But if I missed one of your questions there, feel free to copy and paste it so we see it again. But a question that I love to ask our featured leaders here, Gabriela, is there a piece of career advice that comes to mind, whether you've been the one to give it or that you've received, that you think is very impactful?
I would say is the one about applying for a job, even if you feel like you are not qualified, because that's the kind of like the starting point. If you don't apply, there is no way that you can get that role. So that would be the first one, is like apply as much as you can, even if you feel like you don't qualify. So that would be my first one.
That's a great one. On the conference conversation, I see somebody asked a Slido question that was, do you have any networking tips for the socially anxious? The thought of handing out cards or stickers makes me break out in a cold sweat.
Let me share something interesting. So I was not, and I don't consider myself being an extrovert person. I think if in a place where I feel comfortable, then I can be that person. But like if I go to a place, an event where I don't know anyone, it's so hard to break the ice. But it's been an exercise that I've been doing for, well, let's say probably 20 years. And because one of the things that I wanted to change in myself was to be that person that would talk to others. And it always started, and I'm going back in time just to share that I was very anxious about being surrounded by people and being the center of attention. But for several years, I worked with some like music bands and singers, and I was doing the production side. So I would have to go and hand flyers and go and talk to the press about the upcoming concerts. And then I remember talking to someone and I'm like, this is so hard for me. And then someone told me, is there anyone that you admire, that is that person that you would like to be in terms of like that specific skills? And I'm like, yes, there is. So I would see that person and I would try to see how they behaved, how they interact. And I would try to mimic, and my hands would be sweating. And I would be like, not being able to talk very much, and my ideas would all blank. But anyway, all that to say that I don't think it's like some of us are extroverts. By the end of a conference, like midday of a conference, I go back to my room and I be quiet because I can't talk to people anymore. And then I recharge and then I can go back. But try maybe the one-on-one, like instead of like talking to a lot of people, I prefer usually to do one-on-ones than to have like a group of people. One, because it's a lot of noise and I can't project my voice in that way to people to listen to me. So I really like the one-on-one, like in the corner. And I feel like I take more out of these one-on-ones than a group conversation.
Definitely. I'll share something that has been useful for me with that is if I see that somebody posted on LinkedIn or wherever that they're going to be at that conference, I'll like connect with them and just say like, hey, saw you are also going to this conference, or like, hey, looking forward to seeing you at POSIX conference. And it just makes me feel more comfortable than saying hello to them in person, because I've like already reached out to them before. And in my mind, I like have an idea of maybe 5 to 10 people who are going to seem familiar to me that I could then talk to. I don't know if that's helpful for anybody. I see, Livy, you had an idea in the chat too. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, so I'm a big introvert who talks to a lot of people and has a podcast and like does things that are not introvert like at all. And I give myself a job, like I volunteer for something. Can I help you with something? Can I sign up for something that gives me a purpose? And then I know what I'm doing. I have an objective, right? And I also have something in my hands. I always bring my camera. That way I have a reason to talk to somebody. They have a reason to talk to me. I have a reason to walk away. Like, oh, I got to go take a picture of those people. And then I walk away. Just gives me an object that I can kind of use as a focal point. And then my other piece of advice is to practice. Like, we all have this strange assumption that we're supposed to know how to talk to people. No, not everyone does. And we just went through a pandemic where we weren't getting as much face time as we normally maybe would have. So figure out how to phrase things and then practice them out loud in the mirror, whatever it takes. Give yourself a little bit of help.
I love that idea of like giving yourself a job and then just like carrying your camera and making your own job there. I think that helped as being like a community organizer too, for like local meetup groups, because you always did have something you had to go run and do as well.
Yeah,
I
that's
see.
that's a great tip. And I have I'm very self-conscious, and no matter how many people told me otherwise with my English, like I've been in the US for 12 years, and I still struggle with English. And everybody says, no, I can understand you perfectly, but like every day it's a struggle. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to fight this. I'm going to get on the phone. I'm going to make these appointments. I'm going to like try to. So it's not natural. Again, it can be in other forms as well, especially if you don't speak the language, or if you are very conscious about the way that you speak and you cannot express yourself the way that you would like to. It can be frustrating as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Saptarishi, and apologies if I've mispronounced anybody's name. I see you had asked a question in the chat. Do you want to jump in here?
Hi. You got my pronunciation right. You're fine.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm a marketing analytics student here at Simon Business School, but I found myself really interested in like data science over the past 1 year, and I've been getting really more and more into it, more I practice. And I've had a few portfolio-worthy projects, but with the current market situation and how it is in the professional environment, I'm really like struggling and wondering how I should like break into it. And I'm wondering, like, I always wonder if I'm like good enough yet or not, because there's always something new to learn. There's always a new tool. So I was wondering if there is something that I could particularly do that's probably going to help me out.
Yeah, there is always something to learn. Like you can ask several questions to me now, and I will say, I don't know, but I can probably figure out. It's impossible to know everything. So my suggestion is always like, if you come from marketing, if you come from biology, if you come from epidemiology, try to find a job where you can leverage those skills. So you know the domain, right? So you also know data science, but maybe the person that is hiring cannot see how much you know because you don't have work experience with data science, where you have knowledge about marketing. So we can try to highlight the pieces that you know more, and find a job that is more focused in that area, and then you can start from that place. Another suggestion would be, the first job is the hardest, for sure. The first one is going to be the hardest. I'm not saying that the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth, it's easy. I got a lot of rejections when I was applying to every time I change jobs. It's like I get a lot of rejection. So I don't think it ever ends. But I would say the first one is the hardest. Even if you have to do 2 steps back and start in a more like beginner role, that's fine, because I see that it's an investment. So that would be my suggestion. So, and apply, because that's the way that works. The industry works. It's like you have to apply as much as you can, and it's ridiculous. You apply to 200, 300 jobs sometimes, and you get maybe 5, 10 interviews if you are lucky. So keep applying, and I'm sure you'll get something very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. And when you were talking about like that first job being the hardest, it was just reminding me you talking about your job in music production. And I would just love to hear a little bit about your like early career journey or how you got into data.
Oh, that's a long story. Because so first of all, when that was back in Brazil. So I didn't know exactly what I want to do or what major I wanted to do. So I did a lot of back and forth and trying other things and not doing anything but working with music because it was something that I was passionate about. So there is a lot of back and forth in my career. And I say that it's never too late for you to apply and work in a place that you want to work for. So I finished my bachelor. I always say that I was almost 30. And I think in the past, like even my family, they were like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen to Gabriela because, she's trying all these other things and she's not finishing school. Like she's trying these different majors and stopping. But then I found my way. Then I found something that I really fell in love, which was statistics. But even then, it took me forever to finish my course, and to to. So anyway, all that to say that it's never too late. All the experience that you have done in the past is going to be helpful in some ways. Like I think that starting a community and being an advocate, those 2 things, when I was working with music, if I haven't worked with music, I'm not sure if I was able to do those 2 things because a lot of skills that I developed when I was doing the music production helped me with these 2 pieces and being able to talk and communicate, right? Because I had to do this. So nothing that you do is lose, like don't lost. I don't believe that it's like there is this run that you have to finish and you have to start programming at the age of 5 to be someone successful by 30. Maybe, sure, yeah, but I don't regret any loops that I did.
I absolutely love hearing about those like lessons learned in different career paths and like how that influences you and the role that you have now too. What was that moment where you fell in love with statistics? Like why?
So that was when I saw that things were even like the news on TV, they were talking about data, statistics, and I'm like, so statistics is much more than math, because everybody was like, Gabriela, are you crazy to do statistics? What are you going to do? Are you going to be working in this? There was one only place in Brazil where they hired statisticians, right? It was a governmental thing, and they were like, oh, are you going to be working there? So that was kind of like scary. But once I saw the other side, that people were talking in the news and the newspapers about data, statistics, and how that influenced the decision makers and all of that. And I'm like, oh, there is much more than what people are telling me, that it's interesting that it's not only like the math, but there is the other piece about communication and decision making and being a decision maker, that kind of like shift my my mindset as well. So that was the turning point for me.
I was just double checking to see if there was a question on Slido, but something that we were talking about before, and I wanted to make sure we touched upon it, is we were talking about the like process of hiring and being a hiring manager, especially when you have a lot of people like reaching out for a role that, I mean, maybe is shared quite a bit on LinkedIn, or a role at Microsoft. And some things that you've learned along the way. And I thought it might be good for all of us to kind of share some hiring best practices here too, if we've been on that side, being the person interviewing others.
Yeah, so I had a few opening roles a few months ago at Microsoft to work with AI. So like two, I think, hot things, like working for Microsoft and AI, especially because Microsoft is doing well right now. So so it was a little chaotic because one, people would reach out to me every day to learn more about the role, and I think the reason why also like a lot of people were reaching out to me, not only because Microsoft and AI, it's because we went through massive layoffs for several months. So people are inside Microsoft and outside Microsoft, they were desperate to find a new job. And of course, they wanted to be in the cool thing that it's AI. So I shared with Rachel, and I shared on LinkedIn that I was so overwhelmed by the messages, and I try to reply to every message, every person that messages me, I try to reply. And I was like, I can't scale myself of like replying, and I'm not going to do informational interviews because I don't think it's fair for the other candidates. They all should go through the same process. So my response was always like, you know, please apply. The team will review your resume and then we can talk. I also build a FAQ, like some like questions that people would ask me, like, for example, those roles, they were based here in San Francisco, so you had to be based here. And then I explained the reason why we were not accepting remote candidates at this point. So I took some time to do this as well, but it was very, very, very overwhelming because I couldn't reply to everybody. And people would get mad and send me messages over and over and over again, trying to push for like some informational or to be on the interview. And it was very stressful, I would say, being a hiring manager in that situation. It was for the first time that this happened to that scale.
Yeah, I'd love to hear other people's thoughts on this too, if you have tips or feedback, or if you want to just put it in the chat too, and how you had dealt with that before. It does sound overwhelming, and you want to be able to respond to everybody too.
Yeah, because like also like I've been in the other side as well, and I would be so pissed when the person don't reply to me. So I don't want to be that person, but also like, how can I not burn out myself
Yeah,
with the amount of requests? It was
definitely
insane.
Yeah. I see there was one other Slido question that I wanted to get to, that was, do you have any advice for people who also want to be in the advocate type role? If they don't necessarily want to be like an influencer spamming social media, but want to make good contributions to the community?
You don't have to be that person. You don't have to go, like there are some advocates that they don't even have social media. So there are other things that we do. I'll give an example. At Microsoft, the advocacy in general, the advocacy role, we have like 3 pillars. One, it's content. So it's writing content, for example. So you don't have to be in front of the camera, or you don't have to be on social media. The other one is about community. We like, you can be in your, it doesn't need to be like an external community, but it could be like a community that we have internally. And the third pillar, it's around product feedback. So it's very different, right? So I talked about three things that people usually don't think about when they think about advocacy. They think that you are going to be on stage 24/7 talking to people and going to conferences all the time, which is not true. Yes, there is a space for that. And if you are that person, you can be that person, right? But also, like, there are other things that you can do as well, that you don't have to be an influencer, or you don't have to be putting your face out there.
Thank you for that. One other, I know we have just a few minutes left here. So something we always love to ask people here is if you have any recommended resources or books that you suggest we all check out. Libby's been doing a great job keeping track of all of those book recommendations. So I'd love to hear what you have.
I have some, I can't remember at the top of my head, some of the, because I read a variety of books, like from like very like kind of like management, which I also shared with Deepsha. She asked me a few months ago. I shared like some manager books that I like, but I read everything from like health. I think the one that I was reading, I'll have to get it. I started reading last night, which it's about, well, one is like living beautifully when there are uncertainty and changes. That one I finished. But the one that I'm reading now is When the Body Says No, Understanding the Stress Disease Connection. So, which is like very different from like the manager books that I read previously. There was another book, kind of like cheesy, but it's a book by Mel Robbins, and it's something about the 5 minutes something. It's kind of like a, how do you call like a self-help? How do you call like a help? What do,
The five,
is
it the 5 second rule? Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Or 5 minute rule. Yeah.
Something else. Yeah. So I listened to that one. So it's like, I don't have one thing that I read. I read like everything that I can think of. But those are some ones.
I see Adam said 5 second rule is for floor food. I do think it says 5 second rule. Let me see if this is the right one.
No, I think it's 5 minutes. 5 seconds
Okay.
it's too little.
There's another book called 5 Seconds then. Well, those are great suggestions. Thank you so much. And I do recommend everybody check out that link that Libby shared there, because she's been collecting all the books everybody has suggested too. But thank you so much, Gabriela, for joining us today and sharing your experience with us all. It's been so fun to have you on.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I hope we can do this again anytime soon. And I'm sorry that I will miss you all, but maybe next year I'll be there.
Yes,
have
we
fun.
will miss you. Yeah, I hope if anybody is going to be at Posit Conference and maybe is thinking, how do we go and talk to people, or feeling like nervous about it, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I would love to meet with you there, grab coffee, or just have someone to walk around with. So great to see everybody today. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you all for coming and for the questions, and feel free to connect.
Bye all. Thank you.